What's happening, YouTube? Welcome back. So this is a talk about used electronic parts that have the same high failure rate for the reason why you're replacing that part, and you go the used route, right? And this goes for other things, but we're going to just talk about this product right here, which is an ABS unit on a Honda. Why would you replace the ABS unit on a Honda? What is the most highest failure rate in a Honda is, Jude? Huh?
ABS unit.
For what code? Yaw rate sensor?
Yeah, and the motor.
Yaw rate sensor is the highest failed part in a Honda ABS unit. It emits all types of warning lights. So if you go to a junkyard or a salvage yard or whatever you want to call the yard, and you buy the same exact unit from a car that's the same age, if not older, or higher or lower mileage, with a high failure rate for the same problem, what are the chances on you getting a good part, even though the junkyard or salvage yard or recycle says, we tested that part, it's good? Well, yeah, I've driven Hondas where one day there is no yaw rate sensor codes and no warning lights, and then it goes off by itself, and then you drive the car and another day it's back on for the same problem. You have less than a 50% chance that the same electronic part you're buying used from the junkyard for a known common flaw or defect in how they design it, you're buying the same problems in most cases. Now, when you're buying an alternator, it's typically not that way, or a starter. And I'll just give you another example. You buy a transmission for, we'll just say, I don't know, any car. And then that transmission's known for valve body issues or TCM issues inside the transmission. What do you think you're buying when you buy a used transmission, Jude?
Same thing.
You're buying the same problems. That's what my point is. So, certain electronics have flaws by design, and by you buying that used component again, you're possibly buying the same problem. And I don't care what any junkyard or salvage guy or recycler, we tested it, we did this, we did that. They all lie to you. They all say they have a 30,000 mile transmission. It's not a 30,000 mile transmission.
130 maybe.
Yeah, or a 30,000 mile engine that came out of a wreck. Sure it did. Yeah, they're salesmen, they get paid commission, remember that. So, and we've been very lucky putting in used ABS units. I would say I've only had three Hondas that the used car dealers purchased ABS units from 3 different vendors have issues. So we had Stars once, we had the other dealer, and we had Savvy. So 3 dealers, and we have done a lot of these, have had 3. So that just tells you how common of a failure that really is, even with used components. We've done a few Dodges and Jeeps that have actually been okay. So it hasn't been a problem. We don't usually see too many Jeeps or GMs in the newer generation for failed ABS units, although the Chevy trucks with the ones underneath, I've seen many of them, and in the older days, the S10s. But yeah, so you buying a used component in today's market, the way that things are built and engineered that have a common failure area inside of them, and we're just going to say this Honda here, if you go to buy this used in a junkyard from the 10-year-old vehicle, over 100,000 miles, it is less than a 50% chance that you're going to actually get a good one. And sometimes when you buy a Reman one, they don't work either. Like we're going to do a Reman controller in an S10 today that we're doing for the 2nd time. We did a Ford Fusion climate controller, Reman electrics from Dorman. It lasted, I don't know, a month before it had the same problem again. So, and the reason I'm doing this video is because I have a dealer that we did a Hyundai for, and we put the ABS unit in, we bled it. It's only one gigantic plug, right? It's one gigantic plug. We put it in, we drive the car, we set everything, we park the car, we move the car again, and then we don't have any issues with it, and then the customer comes to pick it up, the used car dealer, and he pulls up to the bay with all the warning lights on again. That is an electronic problem. If that unit was showing signs of bad when we're done installing it, instantly we would have had a brake ABS problem. So Caleb drove it. I drove it with no ABS issues, and ABS issues sometimes are instantaneous, and sometimes they're not. And then this dealer's like, well, I bought 7 ABS units from this guy and never had any problems. I don't care if you bought 100 of them. You're bound to get a bad part from a junkyard. He's like, oh, they rebuild them, they test them. They didn't take that shit apart. There was no sign that they repaired that. It came in a box just like every other used part, and they just lied to you. And that's that. So, yeah, your success rate, even with engines today. Like, we just had a customer come from another shop that had a used engine installed, and we're not going to give up the shop. They offered a new engine to the customer and a used engine. Time and chain was noisy. A couple other things were wrong with it, and then I actually wound up talking to the shop. This is not us. This is another sloppy mechanic. Both sides. How about that? It was too hard for them to actually put the bolts back in on both sides of the headlight assemblies. And we called him. I said, hey, dude, I know I fixed the exhaust and now the car is quiet. I don't want the customer blaming me for his engine time and chain rattling or anything like that. And he was like, hey, you know, we told the customer to buy a new engine, not a used, and that's what you get for used. My point is, even if you buy a used engine today and they say they tested it, they didn't test it for oil consumption. They didn't tear it down and inspect the rings and time and chain.
That it would turn over.
Correct. That's correct. I have another technician, Steve Connell from Pep Boys, my boy. He's told me that he's had engines delivered from junkyards, and he's replacing the engine for a blown time and chain, and then he pulls the valve cover and timing cover to inspect it because he rotates them, and the engine's blown. Engine's blown. Time and chain's blown. So your success rate of today with all the scammers and liars and bullshit out there on you getting a good used part is very, very uncommon. Unless it's like a mechanical part, like a bracket like this, you're pretty much going to say it's good. We've purchased used cylinder heads in the past, and they said that cylinder head's good. No. Check the valves, bent valves, leaking valves. Just, you know, this is my experience, people. So I would say our success rate with ABS units is good, but don't be sour when you buy a used part and it has the same exact problems, because that's the characteristics of that failed electronics. Thanks for watching.